We need one. Have you got favourites? The other tech podcasts you listen to?
I love Darknet Diaries, which is by a guy called Jack Ryder. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but it's sort of true stories about malware, botnet, crypto, attacks and cybercrime. It really speaks to my inner love of detective and Sherlock Holmes, but in a tech context. So I think that's really great.
Nice. Sanjay, I bet you've got a favourite podcast.
I have a favourite podcast. So mine's the Brené Brown one at the moment. So it's not very tech, but it is about being brave. And I really like that, right? So that's my big thing at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant. Listen, I think we're recording now, guys, so I'm going to have to get more formal and say hello and welcome to the first edition of Me, My CTO and I. My name is Andrew Weaver. I'm the CEO at CTO Academy, who are the very kind sponsors until we get a more high-profile sponsor in place, of course. I'm also a certified non-techie, for those of you who are not aware of my background. So I'm hosting this podcast with the aim to be part exploration, part appreciation, maybe even celebration of the CTO, of the CTO's motivation, mindset, and that nerve-shredding anxiety that sometimes comes with the role. So like many an enthusiastic startup, we're launching this podcast with a vague idea of what we want to achieve, no certainty whatsoever about the outcome. But to help me steer us through these choppy waters, each episode is going to be my co-host, Sanjay Mistry, Group CTO, Leadership Coach, Leicester City fan, no less. Welcome, Sanjay.
Well, hi, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for joining us.
I'm just very excited to get this going. We've been talking about it for a little while, so yeah, it should be fun.
Great stuff. Great to see you. And each episode, I'm actually going to give more applause to our guest, Sanjay, because we've been talking about this for months. Each episode, we're going to be joined by a special guest, and who, for this inaugural recording, I have to give a huge thanks to David Kavanagh, who, amongst many great achievements, and I won't go through them all, David, but was global CTO at Purple Bricks, who, for those of you not familiar with Purple Bricks, was a truly pioneering real estate startup that went, and I'm quoting from your LinkedIn profile here, David, so from the dining room table to a 1.5 billion IPO valuation. But David, thank you very much for joining us.
An absolute pleasure to be the inaugural guest on the podcast. I think, Andrew, we met in 2019, just after I came out of Purple Bricks in a cafe near London Bridge, and I just was really excited about CTO Academy. It would have been a real lifeline for me as what I know now as a sort of an accidental or first-time CTO in a founder-led business. So I'm delighted to contribute and be a small part of your tremendous journey.
Well, thank you so much. You've always been a great supporter, and here you are supporting us again on the first edition of this podcast. So before we kind of get into the meat of this podcast, any magic moments? Here we are. What is it? We're recording this on January the 25th. Any magic moments for you guys so far in the tech world of 2023?
Sanjay, well, I can lead. One, AI has been obviously talked about with what and the dawn of that in 2023 we're in now, right? I like the there's an Italian startup that are creating jumpers or sweaters for 300 quid upwards, and they're ugly sweaters. That flummox AI and you can't be detected. That I like. I really like.
That's I can imagine a lot of people buying it as well, right? That just want it to be off the grid.
Right. Yeah, that's a fashion statement that isn't fashion. Yeah. Up my street.
Oh, so we're wearing next time, Andrew, right?
I'm going to say, Sanjay, you've never been known to wear an ugly sweater, have you?
No, I try not to, right? I try not to.
Sanjay, what are your thoughts? How's the year been for you so far?
Bit of a bang for me, really. So I've got lots of excitement. I've got some buy-in from parts of the business that are not using tech. So we're going to be doing some work with them and hopefully making their lives a little bit easier. But I'm also kicking off an initiative where we're throwing away the rule book within our team. So we're going to spend Friday afternoons not hacking, but throwing away our job titles, throwing away what we would normally do and have a go at a project that the team want to do. and it's quite fun. Some of the junior people in the team are going to actually lead it, and I think I'm just going to sit there and do a bit of testing or something like that. So yeah, it should be a fun start to the year and a fun way of running some projects.
Nice. Well, listen, great to have you both here. So the anchor to every one of our episodes of Me, My CTO and I is going to be Sanjay's fireside chat, which is going to come shortly with David, and they're going to dive more deeply into David's background and some of these issues that we've already briefly covered within the introduction. But first, dear listener, here at CTO Academy, we truly care about our CTO flock, not just for the online courses and the coaching and the community that we provide, but we like to take a pastoral interest in their well-being. And we all work far too hard. We all spend too much of our lives behind keyboards and computer monitors. So welcome to
You Really, Really Need to Get Out More,
the first ever CTO Tech Quiz, where the winner is going to walk away with no less than $50 American to actually get out and have a meal on us, CTO Academy, at a local restaurant of their choice. And so even more applause, going to go on in the background, to our volunteer contestants on episode 1, who literally are taking a step out into the unknown. A huge thank you and welcome to Beata Green and Steve Van Niekerk. Welcome, both of you.
Hello, everyone.
There's fear written across, for those of you listening to this and not watching this version, there is fear written across both of their faces. So I'm going to alleviate some of that anxiety by asking them a little bit more about their backgrounds. Beata, first, you're CTO in Health Intelligence in London. Tell us a little bit more about that and perhaps even where your current focus and challenges are as a CTO.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Andrew, for inviting me here. It's really a pleasure. I just love what you do with CTO Academy. It's so inspirational, and I'm hoping that some of my team will join you very soon as well on the journey. And yes, so I'm a CTO, very new CTO of In Health Intelligence. It's a healthcare and diagnostic screening company. And there's so many challenges. When I joined, the company was very much a service company. So what we're trying to do this year is to enable the technology, so the technology will drive the progression of the company itself. And we're focusing on 4 pillars. We're focusing, as always, on people. We're focusing on process efficiencies. We're focusing on innovation, and also on the management of the program work. So our end customers, and it's very important to state that our end customers are patients, the NHS patients, who, as you know, there's so many challenges right now in the NHS. So the idea is really to enable those patients to receive better care, to receive quicker care, to be able to attend their appointments, to communicate to them very well. So the end goal that we're aiming for, again, is very inspirational. And also what we want to do is to drive innovation, because the innovation is behind so many of these improvements. So we're trialing currently AI in our screening department to really figure out whether we can use AI for grading the results. So again, with the benefit of patients to getting these results quicker. We're looking at how can we reduce patients' non-attendance. So you wouldn't believe how many patients do not attend their appointments. And again, this results in such a wastage. So there's so many angles to that role. But also for me, and it's very important to say, I'm a sort of non-techie CTO. So I know I've got a lot of gaps in my learning, including security, cloud. And the point I wanted to make is that, as with every senior role, a lot of it is in the leadership, because you can learn, as you go along, you can read. It's not the rocket science, but your leadership skill and how you understand your team, how you structure their deliverables to complete your gap is really critical, and how you drive everything is probably what makes that role really successful, even like myself, if you've got the gaps in these other areas as well. So, and that's why I think the CTO Academy, this is the advertisement now, which is great, because it's using the house. So.
We honestly didn't say, we didn't pay these people in advance. We may be paying them after this quiz, but we didn't pay them in advance. So thank you, Beata, for that. And by the way, if you are lucky enough to win this quiz, Have you got a nominated restaurant? Is there a place that you'll be going with whoever?
Yeah.
I'd live with you.
Yes, I've never been there. It's a restaurant called St. John's in Farringdon in London, and it's recommended by one of my idols. It's a guy called Anthony Bourdain, committed suicide. He's a cook and travel writer. I just adore him, and it's one of his favorite places.
Oh, nice. I know St. John's. Yeah, brilliant place. Fantastic. Okay, well, that for again, those that are not listening just on the podcast, that is flashed up on the screen. So that is the restaurant that will be benefiting from CTO Academy's $50. Should be able to win this inaugural CTO Tech Quiz. Steve, down in Johannesburg, you've been waiting very patiently. Great to see you. Tell us a little bit more about you and Proco AI.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for the invite and hi, listeners. Yeah, I'm Steve from Proco AI, my CTO. I've been so for a year, and before that, along the dev side and the engineering. We're a real-time brand tracking and creative testing SaaS platform. Also, the AI needs, so we've got both AI in the background, working away at the numbers. I think in terms of challenges and things that we're looking at, data is our core business. And I think one of our big challenges is always making sure that data is always robust, making sure we're getting the right things in so we can feed our customers the right data. Because they're going to be making business decisions based on these. So we have to make sure that these things are really top quality. So we're spending a lot of time at making sure that we have all the right metrics in place, all the right measurement tools. I think it's probably a good thing for all of us, that aspiring CTOs out there to consider whenever they're building things. Look at how you're going to measure it, how you're going to report on it, because it's going to be such an important part of what you do. So we really, at this point in time, looking down all those things and making sure that we do that 100% right. And I think as most companies have as well, the resourcing issues and staffing and finding the right people for the right job. I think we're having some of those challenges, which we're going to be focusing this year on building up a team again and making sure that it's of the highest quality. The hiring is such an important part of the process of being the right people in the right seats, doing the right things. And it's always a challenge, as it's speaking to this point on people in leadership, making sure that you have everyone who's motivated and in the game and driving forward for the business. It's so important. And that's one of our goals this year. We're also jumping here on a personal note, juggling being in the weeds and in the engineering and putting out to being more in the strategic and those things. Those challenges and exist, finding the right balance and building the team around you to ensure that you've got the capacity to do the higher level management things. That's always a good thing to do. Yeah, that's it. And technical debt. That bug is.
Yeah, we've talked about that. We've heard that.
It's been there for 4 years.
Yeah,
exactly. It's been there for 4 years now. We're starting to see, we always talk about legacy systems. We're never going to be a legacy system. It's like, now we have legacy. We have to deal with some of those guys.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. And have you got a nominated restaurant down in Joburg that will be enjoying the benefits of this win?
There's a lovely Italian restaurant called Niekerk.
Marvelous. Well, that's currently flashing up on the screen for those watching this. Right. Okay. Now, until we do secure some lucrative sponsorship for this podcast and this quiz, it is very rudimentary, I'm afraid. So there are going to be 3 questions. First person to answer 2 correctly walks away with the lolly. But the way that we find out who is going to answer first, you literally got to put your hands up. So can you just practice on this technology, Steve? Just give us a show of the hand there. And Beata. Got it. Brilliant. Okay. So we're going to be beautiful. Thanks, Beata. You guys are technology savvy, aren't you? So here we go. We're going to go with the first ever CTO Tech Quiz from CTO Academy. 3 questions. Beata, I'm going to give you the luxury of choosing. Number 1, 2, 3, just so it's completely random. Which number do you think we should choose for the first question?
Let's go with 3.
3. Actually, that is the most interesting of the 3 questions. So well done for going for that. So this is a question of who am I? And this is going to be very simple about a chap whose details I'm trying to find very briefly on my organized system. Right. So who am I? The moment you realize who this is, hand up, see if it's right. This person was born London, 1912, died in Cheshire, UK, 1954. He was highly influential in the development of theoretical computer science, providing a formalization of the concepts Beata.
Turing. No, wrong.
No, you're right. You're right. Alan Turing is right.
Well done.
No, perfect. Yeah, Alan Turing. ramble on for much longer there, but you got it very early. Thank you. So 1-0 to Beata. One step
I would
closer.
give a few more clues.
Well, I was going to say, Steve, you were looking puzzled. Steve, question 1 or 2, which one would you choose?
No, let's not top one.
Okay, this is a very quick fire one, probably going to be fairly straightforward. Can you name the company that is behind ChatGPT? Steve.
OpenAI is the business, tied to Microsoft.
Yeah, well, I think, there's a big investment coming, isn't there? So, brilliant. Well, this is great because we now have a nail-biting tiebreaker. And again, I think this is probably quite a quick answer. So, if we were to say that Alphabet, Google, Meta, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, if they're the 5 tech giants, which of them hasn't been involved in big layoffs recently? Beata.
Amazon.
No, they have had quite a few layoffs. So I'm going to give Steve the option here.
I think they've all been involved in layoffs.
Oh, crikey. I'm going to have to split
Give us the names again.
So the ones that are left, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple. Pretty much one of those 4 has not been involved in mass layoffs recently.
I haven't seen an Apple one.
Is that your final answer?
That's
That's correct. That's correct.
My one is
Well, listen, there might be a debate ongoing now about which should have been the correct answer, but certainly, as far as I've seen, it's Apple that are the ones that have not been announcing mass layoffs. So, Steve and Niekerk, congratulations! You are the inaugural winner of this quiz. You will be dining out at said Italian restaurant. Beata, I hope we're meeting in London. We've got an event coming up in London in February where I would be very happy to buy you a drink for contributing. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beata.
Thank you. It was fun. Thank you, Steve, as well.
It was fun.
Good luck with that. Congratulations on winning.
Well, that was awesome, Beata. So I think that went okay, Sanjay, didn't it, for first effort?
Very good. Yeah. Great answer on the first question, though. I mean, she got it fast.
Pretty quick. Were you guys on top of those questions?
I got the last one.
I didn't get the last one, but I managed the first 2, surprisingly.
Well, there may be some debate on whether that answer was correct, but I'm going to leave it out there. So listen, no more time to waste. It's time for Sanjay's fireside chat. I'll leave it with you, Sanjay.
Thanks, David, for joining me. Hope you got a hot drink.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, big thanks for joining. I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to kind of just kick off and get straight into it. The first bit I really want to hear about is, we briefly spoke about Purple Bricks and you're an accidental CTO, and it's like really intrigued. How did that all happen, right? Because it was a rocket ship.
Yeah. First off, look, thanks again for inviting me to do this podcast. I'm really grateful and honored. We spoke, as you say, briefly. It was a Friday evening. I think I was tired and cranky. Who is this guy? Got on a call, and I think an hour later, I was buzzing. You just give energy, so you're perfect for hosting this. And again, I'm very thankful. Purple. I think purple, the color purple is made from blue and red. And looking back on my journey with Purple Bricks, it's clear there was a lot of bruises and bumps along the way. And a lot of this was due to my own lack of maturity, experience, and I'm just not taking care of myself and my health properly, I think. But in the end, as I said, it went from a PowerPoint to a 1.5 billion valuation that internationalized. So, I like to think I brought hard work, determination, a can-do attitude that helped set the culture and shape the team. And I certainly worked tirelessly to protect and empower my tech team. However, in hindsight, I realized this created a really super lonely place for me, and it drained my relationship with the exec team. So, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned personally is the importance of clear communication and an understanding when it comes to culture and technology. And it's crucial to have that understanding and agreement across the business, and have a really clear process for considering, developing and documenting technology. It's got to be accessible for everyone. And then I think on the technical side, it really pays to do your research before expanding into new territories, and it's important to stay attuned to the team and the pulse of the team, and to prioritize knowledge sharing and employee progression. I think they're kind of my two big sort of headline epic takeaways. And to finish on that, I think overall I've come to the realization that being a leader isn't about being a superhero, and knowing everything. It's more about being entrusted with a position and doing your best to lead and support others. Whilst I still have moments of imposter syndrome, I kind of come to some sort of self-awareness that I have a unique set of skills and abilities, and I can make a positive impact. Yeah. But I'm still a work in progress, and I truly believe it's more about the direction you're traveling in than where you've been. In that sense.
I really like that. I'm gonna come back to imposter syndrome in a little while, but one of the things that I wanted to just pick on was the kind of rocket ship that you spoke about. So starting at a kitchen table, and all of a sudden it's this thing that you were working on is worth $1.5 billion. Did you have a plan? Or, I guess what I'm interested in, and hopefully other people are interested in, is how much of it did you make up as you went along versus, and how far in the future were you always working towards? That for me, that's always where my fear comes in. So it'd be great to hear your experience with that, really.
Yeah, that's a really insightful, and I think it's the right question to ask. I've been in 8 startups as well as some more enterprise, the IBM's, Toyotas, and the UK government projects, but the 8 startups, and I think Purple Bricks was number 5. I'm including 2 of my own as well in that, and I'm up to about 8 now since Purple Bricks. But startups require a fair bit of luck and time in being in the right place in the right time with a great product or service that can make the difference. In Purple Bricks, to your point, I was quite inexperienced, but I was fortunate that the timing was right, the product fit was right, and eventually we got the investment critically. Because I've come out of a startup, incidentally, with the founders of Purple Bricks that didn't end well at the end of last year, and we applied lots of lessons learned in terms of technology and product and general business strategy. But all those things didn't come together like they did in Purple Bricks. And of course, I made things up. Of course, I had to think constantly on my feet. It was the most pressurized situation. I'd been a CTO before that, but CTO of my own consultancy. I lived in France for 10 years, and I had about 20 employees and maybe about 15 across the world. But I was a CEO, CTO, CMO, but working for a founder-led business, I was pushed hard, and rightly so, because it was a business about pace, about gaining market share rapidly. But I think, to my earlier points, the keys there were I worked tirelessly, relentlessly, not always in a healthy manner. I burnt myself out again and again, but I never gave up, and I treated people, I think, on the whole, with the respect that I would like it in their position and empower people. But to finish on that answer, a long-winded way of saying, yes, I made things up. But I think surrounding myself with a fantastic founding team and bringing those into some of the decision-making really helped me develop as a leader as well.
Really interesting. Thank you. I think from my experience, and I think you've touched on it a couple of times now, is having those people around you is what really, really helps. So whether that's your peers within the management team or exec team, or the kind of the team that you build underneath you, whether that's to kind of complement you or to kind of help with your deficiencies. And I think that really, really helps. I guess, my question, and maybe this is a bit leading, but you're going through, I assume, lots of chaos as you guys were scaling up and trying to find funding and building the product and, tweaking it based on feedback. Do you think, what do you think was the number one thing that you got right with Purple Bricks that maybe you didn't nail with the last project that you've just mentioned? Was it the hiring? Was it the people? Was it product market fit?
Yeah, I will answer that. But stepping back, I think, and to your question, part of your question, the chaos. I think what happens in startups, I think, and personally, I feel like positivity is key. We can buy into the stress, the noise, the craziness, and we can make it even more chaotic. I think certainly that can be how it spreads. But I think in generally, obviously, the anxiety doesn't help anybody, and it probably makes it harder for people. So I think, I've always, probably not unconsciously, but tried to not amplify that stress or chaos, and really make a conscious effort to be positive, and to really try and be infectious with positivity. Now, we had that in spades in Purple Bricks. That just wasn't just driven by me by any means. It was a real purple cult, and driven by great founders and great leaders across the business. We had that in my last place, which was booming, and which had a number of people from Purple Bricks. But why and conversely, the technology in Purple Bricks, whilst it was good enough, it was just good enough. It was seat of the pants. The technology in booming, and every CTO is probably going to say that the last team they worked with was the best, and the technology was, just right. But the technology was the best in booming. We as I said, we learned from mistakes. We really had architecturally and principle-led, documented procedure that is a little bit like an enterprise startup, but that's not fair because it wasn't like a corporate enterprise, but it had some of those real foundations that enabled a collaborative, inspiring, I think, product and tech environment for people to work in. And we were ready, we launched, and 2-3 days later, we were on TV adverts on Ant and Deck, Saturday Night Takeaway, and big spot times on TV, and we succeeded, and it was a flawless deployment of the product, and it was even written as such in the industry press, which made me very proud of everybody that worked tirelessly to deliver that. But I think to your question, again, it's not just about technology, it's about marketing, it's about sales, it's about product fit. And I think the product fit was there. And I think ironically we had a pivot, but the overarching economic climate from the mini budget onwards and the disruption that we see in VC and private equity, we didn't get that funding, and we were running at a decent burn rate because of us being set for real longevity. And like a lot of startups, we ran out of runway, and I think that's my third failed startup, and about 8, as I say.
I think it's good, and I think from those bits of failure, you kind of learn and you pick yourself up and you carry on. And I'm sure you got lots of other projects in the pipeline. I think one of the things that you said that really got me was being calm when things are going wrong, being calm when there's chaos around you, and I got that from our chat that we had pre-Christmas when a 20-minute conversation went on a little bit too long on a Friday evening, but you've got this calmness about you. And would you say for, CTOs maybe listening to this, or aspiring CTOs, that actually things may be crazy in front of you, but you need to remember that it's crazy for your whole team, and part of your job is to bring the calmness in, bring the tension down, and let them do what they're good at, which is maybe solve the problems that are in front of them, really.
Absolutely. I have got the calmness. I've got the calmness in the context of outages, issues, things in my control, I suppose. And I really believe in not just a cliche, but allowing people to fail and treating people with the utmost respect. I took down, I probably can say this now, it's 2003, but I took down a Toyota car manufacturer, production service with a terribly written, poor script. I know how it feels to make mistakes, and I really want to give people, and I have given people the freedom to make mistakes and not, and just work on the positive side of that and help that person and support that person. I think I'm pretty good at that. On the flip side, I'm terrible at stakeholder management and peer-to-peer collaboration. I talked about, distancing myself from the other executives and the business. Now, not to say that, I believed in certainly being in the business and understanding how call center worked, or the back office, the nuts and bolts. And I believed in relationships, but again, I was very protective of my team, which was not optimal, but it was just a reaction to being inexperienced. And I think what I'm working on now, what I believe I've improved on leaps and bounds is being a team member of the executive team as well, and really making efforts to build deeper relationships and understand what the day-to-day for that person is, being a CMO or COO, and how I can help, and communicating that back, over communicating with the tech and the product teams, and so it's truly at least aspiring to be one culture, one team that can deliver together.
Yeah, do you know what? I really echo that. I re-listened to a really favorite book of mine, which is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And your reference there is spot on. The team as a leader that you are in is that exec team. That's your number one team. And I think if you get that right, and I think exactly like you said, build those relationships, right? Then you do become, as a collective, quite superhuman, because your weaknesses are counterbalanced and your strengths are amplified. So I think that's a really good point. And just want to make a reference to the 5 dysfunctions of a team, right? One of my favorite books. I've re-listened to it very recently. And I think it's a really, really important point to kind of go, that is your first team. And I think anyone that's first time in a management position, in a senior leadership position, definitely a book that I would recommend. I'm gonna go right back to when we first started our conversation, David, and you mentioned the word imposter syndrome, right? And I kind of just want to get a little bit out of you on this, because I get imposter syndrome all the time. If it's not every week, it's every couple of weeks. I have a head in hands moment and go, I don't know what I'm doing. I've said something. I don't know if it was the right thing, or I made a decision. Is it okay? And I feel like that all the time, even though I think I've been around the block a little bit. And again, really nice to hear you say that you still go through those pangs, and it'd be really just lovely to hear a little bit more about where you are on that journey, really.
Gosh, you could extend the podcast for an hour. I could probably get through everything, but I think I can get it daily in different circumstances. And I think there's a spectrum, and a lot of people suffer from it. But I don't want to use the word suffer. I think it's helped me learn and be introspective about myself. I suppose 2 things that have helped me, is the acknowledgement that, I'm not the most stressful person in the universe, and people are busy worrying about their own stuff. They probably, didn't pick up on what I said or what I did in the same way that I was my worst critic, and don't let that stuff sort of live rent free in your head. The second thing is just the stoic approach. I like to do a bit of transfer of responsibility. Not to say that what I'm accountable for, I'm responsible for. That's with me, but what I can't control, and I like to a bit of mindfulness, if you like, a bit of visualization to say, that stuff is just, again, with the positivity hat on, that stuff is got to be taken care of. It's off my shoulders. They're just two quick things that I like to do to treat the symptoms of imposter syndrome.
I think that's great, and I think that's definitely a lesson that everyone can learn. Right, so I've got one more question. We could go on forever, but I've got one final question, just to close our conversation, which is knowing what you know now. So you've obviously been on a journey, you're still going on a journey, and I love the fact that you talk about you've got a direction rather than an actual map, right? And I talk about that a lot as well. But if you today were to talk to your 20-year-old self, what's the one bit of advice?
Only one?
You're only allowed one. Yeah, you're only allowed one.
Right. Okay. I'm a master of not giving short answers, but firstly, I would say I'm not going to give you one. I am going to give you one thing, but I'm going to just get there. Bear with me. No regrets ever, and that's not what I would necessarily say, but just instinctively, no regrets ever. Secondly, I prefer to, and I've done this weird thing where I project myself as 40 years in the future and look back and try and from the future give myself advice right now, and that direction thing as well. What's my identity when I'm towards the end of life, and how do I want to live my life? But to your question, one thing. There's a number. I think the one thing that if I was speaking to my 20-year-old self, I'd say, listen up, kid. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Otherwise you might end up just like me at 48, still trying to work out how to use the self-checkout at the Tesco till. On a serious note, though, don't be afraid to ask for help, reach out, and be a bit more vulnerable in terms of your what you know, what you don't know.
I love it. Thank you very much. Thanks, David, for giving your full self and being so honest with us. Really, really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. Again, you're a catalyst for that open dialogue, and it's been great to be on the first episode of this podcast.
No, great, both of you. Sanjay, beautifully hosted as I expected, and David, thank you for that personal journey. I love that question of what would you 20-year-old, what were you telling your 20-year-old self? Because that 20-year-old self would probably tell you to get lost. If you started, exactly. I know what my 20-year-old self would say to me now. But David, listen, thank you. You set a high bar, and thank you for positioning that BAFTA award on the shelf behind you there as well. That's extremely kind. But listen, hang on for our final segment. We've got one final segment to tease our audience with, because CTO Academy, we work with tech leaders in, I think it's 88 countries, is the latest count. And we really celebrate our global community. So we wanted to use this platform as well to just shine a spotlight on clusters of innovation around the world that are really having an impact locally and globally. Now, you can rest easy if you're based in Silicon Valley, or even in Silicon Roundabout. We're not going to be coming to you. This is a celebration of emerging tech communities. And we're going to start with a real favorite city of mine, which is Manchester, home of the Industrial Revolution, and now an emerging center for the digital one. So without further ado, here is the first in our series of Around the Tech World in 80 seconds. So welcome to the show, Amy Newton.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great to see you, and thank you. As I've said to all the others on the show, it's a bit of a blind jump, leap of faith here, Amy, so thank you for joining us. But I've got a history with Manchester, as you know, and I love the city, got a great affection for it. So it was an obvious choice to be the first city under the spotlight for Around the Tech World in 80 seconds. So are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, Philip, run the clock. So, Amy, tell us about you and what's so great about Manchester.
Well, my name's Amy Newton, and I'm the founder and festival director of Manchester Tech Festival. And what I love about the city is how collaborative and friendly and inclusive everybody is.
Fantastic. And what kind of clusters of innovation are taking place around the city?
Luckily for us, we've got Digital Security Hub powered by Barclays Eagle Labs, who are really generous with their space, and a lot of innovation takes place there. And Bruntwood, who have been a real supporter to the tech community as well.
Okay, what tech companies call Manchester home?
We have got Money Supermarket, BJSS, Codurance, Niekerk, Booking.com. We've got so many tech companies that call Manchester home because Manchester really is a village, not a city.
Brilliant. I love that. How supportive are the local funding and business support networks?
Luckily for us, we've got Procura in the city, and they give a lot of their time for free to support startups and scale-ups, particularly those that are diverse-owned, which is brilliant.
Okay, and also government backing as well, local government backing.
Absolutely.
Okay, quickly, why should a company think about moving to Manchester? 7 seconds.
Because whether we're building cobbles or code, we are fantastic.
Brilliant. 80 seconds. Awesome. Thank you so much. Brilliant. I love Manchester. Guys, have you got any working or personal experience of Manchester?
I think it's a great city. I'm seeing a lot of tech and a lot of businesses coming out of that area. So not just Manchester itself, but kind of some of the surrounding areas. And I think it is becoming a little hub. So very, very exciting.
Yeah. And David, I think you saw Manchester United lose this weekend. Was that going to be your reference?
Yeah, that's definitely a relative recent reference. Took my 12-year-old to his 5th Arsenal game. We'd never seen Arsenal win before, but I think Sunday made up for it when we have a last-minute goal and beat Man United. That was a great moment.
Well, listen, we'll see what... I mean, how dare I say Manchester United seem to be coming back. But listen, that as they say in Hollywood, everybody, is a wrap. Thank you so much to Dave, Beata, Steve, Amy, and Sanjay for jumping in pretty much in the dark to this first podcast. If we actually emerge emboldened from this experience, then we might yet see you again for a second episode of Me, My CTO, and I. Thank you very much, and goodbye.